Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our homework space webinar, especially for history and geography teachers. My name is Elizabeth Ivory and I'm Head of Marketing here at Folens. And I'm delighted so many of you could join us here this evening. So first up, we have Adam Brophy from our commissioning team, who will bring you through the benefits that homework space has to offer, especially for history and geography teachers. Then Frank Ledwidge, our digital specialist, will give you a closer look inside the platform itself and show you some of the questions and types of question categories homework space offers. Then at the very end, we will have time for any questions that you may have. So if you do have any questions, all you have to do is pop them into the chat box and we'll try and get them at the end. And also we will be recording this session, so if there's any details that you miss, you'll receive an email from us with the recording over the coming days. So without further ado, I'm just going to hand over to Adam. And Adam, you should be able to present there now.
As said, my name's Adam Brophy. I'm a commissioning editor in Folens. I was responsible for the content that went into the history homework space. And I've also published our history textbook, so I'm quite familiar with that area. The geography was covered by the geography textbook was covered by a colleague of mine, but I'm familiar with that homework space product as well. So my aim here is to explain a little bit about the bare bones of homework space, how it's excuse me, how we structured it, our thinking behind it, and how we felt that we could create something that would be a time-saving benefit for all teachers. So very basically, what is homework space? It's our new digital homework solution. So it does pretty much what it says in the title. We've created something that's curriculum aligned, obviously, because it's there to back up whatever textbook that you're using to approach the junior cycle. And it provides ready-made homework assignments for you as teachers that you can give to your classes whenever you should choose to do so. We don't expect that these will cover off all of the homework that you would ever give to a class throughout your 3 years, but it does provide a good option for at least once or twice a week. But we presumed in creating this that you would also want to do other homeworks, but this is a good go-to ready-made solution for you at least half of the time. In this process, you set the homework. The students are notified that they have homework from you. They answer it and submit it on a given date that you specify. And the system automatically marks each student's answers. And then you, as a teacher, can review the results and store and track the student and the class's progress over time. And something very important to note is that this can be used alongside any textbook. It doesn't have to be a Folens textbook. Because it is topic driven, you can just go to the topic that you're covering in whichever book that you choose and take advantage of whatever homeworks are there on that topic. They all cover the learning outcomes as outlined by the curriculum, so everything within the cycle is covered. So how can homework space help you? The great thing about this product is that it saves you time. It saves you having to create homework, and it saves you having to mark homework, and it saves you having to keep a record of the homework that you get and how your students in class are doing. You do that anyway, but this will provide the backbone for a repository of information as to how each student is doing. It also helps to easily track the progress, as I said, for class and student. And it also engages students through interaction, through that sense of drill and repeat, whereby when they're doing their homework, they get immediate feedback. They can see how they're doing, whether they've been successful. It kind of initiates a little bit of a competitive streak within them, so they can, as they immediately get a response, they know how they've done, how they've fared, and whether they can improve on their previous performance. Through that practice and reinforcement, we found that the students are motivated to do better whenever they get a homework in this manner. And also the reporting aspect, which I mentioned earlier, it's a particularly useful source of information for you when preparing for either parent-teacher meetings or if in the future you may have to estimate grades, in circumstances that you've had to deal with in the last couple of years, the assessment process has changed depending on the COVID scenario at a given time. We're hoping, of course, that we'll be able to move back to a sense of normalcy. But if you are in a position where you would have to estimate anything, this can provide a report on how each class and each student has done. When students are doing their homework, they can access it anywhere. I found, I've 2 kids in secondary school myself. I found that being able to do the homework on the way to school, in the car, on your phone, is quite a benefit. It means they don't have to be dragging their school books out in the car. So it's very, very accessible. In the last couple of years, it's become very obvious that you as teachers have the greatest influence on the integration of digital in the classroom. And of course, because you've had to go through education in the last couple of years, digital has become a much more important mode of communication with your teachers. You have been the driving force behind that. And what's come back to us as publishers is that, having gone through that experience, the majority of teachers plan to increase how they use digital, hopefully within the classroom, but possibly not. But either way, the indicators are that more and more digital will be used to present curriculum related material to students. And Homework Space is designed to support this move to a more blended approach between digital and print. For now, the subjects available for Homework Space include Maths, Irish, MFL, which are French, Science and German, French, Spanish and German, Science and Geography and History, all at junior cycle. We are thinking about providing a similar approach to senior cycle, but it's definitely still in the, well, not even in development, in concept stage at the moment. On that subject, after hopefully you've had a chance to demo the product, have a look at it. If any of you have any suggestions or ideas on how Leaving Cert product might be structured, because it's obviously a more, I wouldn't say important, but a more how you approach testing is more significant for senior cycle. So it's something we're trying to get to grips with. So once you've had a chance to have a look at how we've done this for junior cycle, we'd be very open to any feedback you'd have on our product. Now, just to have a quick look at the structure of Homework Space in general. What we tried to do is build it similar to a textbook. And by that I mean, each Homework Space subject has a series of units which reflect the chapters that you would see in a textbook. And within each unit, there is a series of homework assignments on key topics or skills. Within the history and geography products, both of these are topic focused. And each one generally has, for each topic, about 4 homeworks followed by 1 final test, which assesses the student's understanding of every topic covered within the unit. That final test, which is a complete revision at the end of a chapter, differs slightly from the homeworks in that as you work through the homeworks, you will always get some feedback, and you will be notified, or the student will be notified after they answer a question, whether they've got it correct. And in a final test, they aren't told how they've done. It's much more like doing a test or an exam. They have to work through it until at the very end they're notified of their score. The final tests also tend to be in general about twice the length of a standard homework within each unit. They're also brand new questions, they're not repeats. They reflect the type of questions that were asked on each topic within the unit, but they are brand new for the final test. Of course, these are in line with junior cycle specifications, and the aim of the completion of all homeworks for either junior cert history or geography would be that the student would have covered the entire specification. The structure of geography itself is made up of 29 units. Topic focus, as mentioned earlier. All of the learning outcomes for the common level specification are covered by those topics. There's clear progression throughout each homework in that they'll start at the most basic level of each topic and work through increasing in difficulty towards the end, using a wide range of question types, anything from multiple choice questions, multiple options, closed test type questions, drag and drop on images and maps. We have the facility to do listening questions, but it's not particularly relevant for either geography or history, but they've been used with the language ones. For history, there are 27 units, which again cover all the learning outcomes for the specification of 2018. Within history, we divided the units into Irish history and Europe and the wider world, specifically strand 2 and strand 3 of the new spec. For strand 1, the nature of history, the idea is that questions are asked within the homeworks that reflect the requirements of that strand. It's a non-content based strand. It's more about how the events of history in Ireland and Europe are interlinked, how sources are used, how chronology is or the presentation of chronology and the use of timelines as much as possible. So the idea is that the questions asked within the product reflect the nuances and the specific areas of the new specification, as is geography, of course. Again, there's a progression throughout each homework, increasing in difficulty, and the same similar wide range of question types is used throughout. I've just provided here an example of how each unit is presented within geography. This example reflects Unit 3 earthquakes. You've got 4 homeworks there. Each of those, I'm not sure, I think they measure about 6 to 8 questions in each with a variety of question types. And the final test, I think, is about 16 questions. Within history, it's a similar type of structure. In this example, we've chosen the 1798 rebellion. The 4 homeworks work through. They have an introduction about the Age of Revolution, setting the scene, then goes on to revolution, in this case in Ireland, and Ulster and Bantry Bay, investigates Wexford and its aftermath. And the idea of an unsung hero, focusing on Mary Ann McCracken, is related to how the CBA on a person in time might be interpreted within history. You'd be asked to go off, the student would be asked to go off and research a particular character or person in history, and then come back and do the homework on that. And again, a final test that is about twice the length of the homeworks in the section to recap on all of the learning that they've done for that unit. I'll just run very quickly here through how geography is structured. It's a little bit difficult to see, but as you can see, there's in the left-hand column, column 1 and column 3 are the names of the units, and then there's a listing of all of the homeworks associated with those units for geography, which run from units 1 up to 29. It's the same for history. As you can see, if I just go back there, in geography, nearly all of them have 4 homeworks. Some occasionally have 3 where there isn't so much content within that topic that they would merit 4 homeworks, but the rule of thumb is 4, in some cases 3. Actually, sorry, in geography, the rule of thumb is about 3 homeworks, some cases 4. In history, there are usually 4 homeworks with 1 final test. As you can see here, as in geography, you've got, well, chapter 1 is the nature of history. It's the one unit that is focused specifically on the strand 1 learning outcomes. The strand 1 learning outcomes are then addressed throughout all of the other units in a variety of different types of questions. But from unit 2 up to, I think, unit 13 is strand 2, Ireland, and from unit 14 to the end, cover off the units for Europe and the wider world. We've had some very positive feedback so far on the product that's been released. We've spoken to a number of teachers who are currently using it, and the feedback has been, as you can see, relatively high across the board in terms of structure, question quality, variety, and feedback. The vast majority of users believe that homework space will save them 1 to 2 hours per class per week, some expecting even more. That's our aim, that's our belief in producing this product. It came from research that we did long before COVID, actually, just on what teachers were struggling with most, which was coming back loud and clear as the time that was demanded of them to create homework for their classes and then having to correct and store it and ensure that it was in a presentable structure, so well for record keeping and also to present to parents where required. So I think for now I'm going to hand you back to Elizabeth, who will pass you over to Frank, who can give you a deeper and clearer understanding of how a full homework will work. All right, thanks very much.
Brilliant, thanks Adam, that was really informative. Now I'm going to hand over, as Adam says, to Frank, who's going to do a deep dive into the platform itself and show you some examples of the questions for geography and history.
Elizabeth, just sharing my screen. And there I go. Okay, so when you may be familiar, if you're using any of our books already, any of our geography or history books, you may be familiar with this screen already. This is Foland's Hive.ie, our platform for, our website for post-primary teachers in accessing ebooks and teachers' resources. This is also the place where you would access homework space. So on my screen at the moment, what I'm seeing is all of our books across all of our subjects. In this instance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw your attention to the filter button, the subject and level filter button up here in the top right-hand corner. If I click that, I can filter by subjects. So in this instance, I am going to filter by geography and history. And when I close that down, you can see now I have a couple of different programs available to me. So I can see the different geography and history books, and crucial for today's demonstration, I can see homework space, junior cycle geography, and homework space, junior cycle history. So I'm going to have a quick click into geography to show you how it works. When I open homework space, I'm met with this menu on the left-hand side of my screen, which essentially is a breakdown of all of my units, all of the units that are available within homework space junior cycle geography. So as you can see, there are 29 of them there, all the way down to globalization. Within each of those units, you have, as Adam was referring to there earlier, your activities, your homework activities, and your final test. And that is the same all the way through, although different units will have different amounts of activities. They all have activities, homework activities, and a final end of chapter test or end of unit test. What this allows me to do essentially as a teacher is select and navigate through the course. So in this instance, I've already pre-selected volcanoes. I can look at different activities, but I'm just going to look at the one I was looking at earlier, which is Volcano 2.1, Volcano Formation and Life Cycle. So basically what this allows me to do as a teacher is review or preview the homework activity before I set it for my students as work to be completed as homework. So on the right hand side in the main window here, I can see all of the questions. I can see the answers, the possible answers that the student can select. I have highlighted to me already on my teacher account the correct answer. And if I scroll down through the different questions, basically what this allows me to do really is preview not only just the questions, but just to actually confirm that this material that students will be questioned on has actually been covered in class. So you can have a quick look at the questions and say, yes, okay, I'm going to choose this as homework for my students. A couple of other things on the screen here. On the top right-hand corner, we have this show feedback button. If I click that, what that does, if I toggle it on, is it shows me the feedback that a student will get, regardless of whether they get the question right or wrong. So they get that feedback each time that they answer a question, that they select an answer. That basically reinforces the message within the question. You have this option to open the activity. I'm not going to click that now, but what that would allow me to do would be to attempt this activity as if I was a student. So where that could be useful is in your first class with your students. You may wish to actually attempt an activity just to show them basically how homework space works, so that they're somewhat familiar ahead of their first homework assignment. But it's relatively simple. And then at the very top right hand corner we have the important one, which is assign activity. So I'm going to click that, and I'm brought to this screen where I have 3 steps to complete to assign homework for my students. Now, I could select a number of activities. So I could select lots of different chapters containing various units within them, and so on. I could just select, I can basically, it's up to you, whatever, it's fully flexible in the sense that you can select whatever work you'd like to set for your students. So in this instance, I am actually going to, under volcanoes, I'm going to look at the one that I was just previewing, which is volcano formation life cycle. So when I tick that box, that is step 1 complete. Next step then is to choose who I want to set the work for. So in this instance, or generally speaking, you may wish to assign to a class. I have 3 classes here. You may have more than that. You may only have 1 class, but you can set the homework for all of your class in one go, and that may be the option that suits you most at the start, basically, when you're using homework space. In this instance, for testing purposes, or sorry, for demonstration purposes, I am going to click on the Assign to Students button, which allows me to select a class and then assign the work to individual students. So I could go down through this list and I could select whichever students I want. So for example, I actually I'll pick my geography class, that might help. So I will select Denise Ryan. These are, of course, fake names. These aren't real people. So I could basically select a couple of different students down to that list, and that might be useful for the likes of differentiation in the classroom. So once I've selected my students or my class or classes, the last step is to set a due date for this assignment. So I'm going to keep it straightforward for today. I'm going to leave it at today as the start date. So I want the assignment to be available to my students to complete immediately. You could set assignments that aren't going to be ready for the students for really whenever suits you. This is fully flexible. You can plan ahead. You could, for example, set work to be done anytime between now and Christmas. In this instance, I'm going to keep it nice and simple, and I'm going to say this homework has to be completed by Wednesday. When I've completed my 3 steps, step 1, which is to choose the activities or activity that I wish to assign to my students. Step 2, which is to choose the class or students. And step 3, set the start and due dates for the assignment. I can hit the assign button. I can click the assign button down here. When I do that, I'm met with a confirmation message. This assignment has been sent to students, and then I'm brought back to my own account within homework space here on the same screen I was on previously. What I'm going to do here now is I'm going to quickly show you what that looks like for a student. So I have just set this work for a couple of different students, one of them being Denise Ryan. So I'm now going to log in again to folenshive.ie, same website in an internet browser. I'm going to log into that student's account. And once that loads, I will skip this initial privacy message that only comes up once for each user. I'm brought into my assignments page. And on my assignments page, I have a couple of different tabs here. Because this student has at least one outstanding homework assignment that they have to complete, it is appearing, they're brought straight to this screen under the due tab, and this homework assignment is appearing for them here. They also have this notifications button up here, which shows which will contain a notification that they have homework set for them. And then we also have against this assignments button up here, we have this little number 1 indicating that there's one assignment due. If I click into this assignment, I'm brought to a summary page, which essentially just shows the student when it was assigned, when it is due, the amount of questions, and there's no time limit, that doesn't apply here. And then from there, I can click on the Start Assignment button. Once this loads, I'm brought to the homework activity itself. So this is essentially where students actually do the work. On this screen, we're seeing a couple of different things. So we have the title of the activity, the question number, and the total number of questions, the amount of attempts. Each question only offers the student one attempt. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run through some of these questions very quickly. Now, I did more human geography. I didn't really do physical geography in college, but I think I should get some of these right, I hope, anyway. I don't want to make a show of myself. This question, I'm going to try and get this one right. So the parts of a volcano, what is part A? So I'm going to guess that that is going to be the ash and cinder cloud. So I'll select that answer and click check answer. And great, I've gotten that correct. So when as a student, when I select a correct answer and submit it, essentially I am given feedback, highlighted in green, indicating that the answer I selected was correct. And I'm given feedback here, again, reinforcing what I've just selected and what I've just, the question itself. I'm going to move on to question 2. I'm going to try and get this incorrect. So what is part B, which is here? So I will pick, we'll pick the ash and cinder cloud again. We know it's not that. So if I click check answer, again, I've got this instantaneous, immediate feedback, reinforcing to the student, no, you've got that wrong, but this is the correct answer, which is part B, and the student can scroll up and see what they should have selected. Moving on to the next question, I might actually skip this one. I'll answer this one. So what is part E, which I believe is the magma chamber? Thankfully, I got that correct. Part E is the magma chamber. And within homework space, we have a couple of different question types. So there are closed test type questions like this, where you have to fill in the blanks. There are multiple choice. There are tick box type questions. There are drag and drop type questions. I'm just going to run through this one fairly quickly, and I'll try and get it partially correct. So I will say that magma moves to the surface through an opening called and I will get this wrong. I think I'm getting it wrong. When it reaches the surface, it is known as lava, and it will build up around the vent to form I believe the correct answer is cone-shaped. I will say round. And I'll click check answer. And as you can see, I got this question partially correct. So I got 2 parts correct, 2 parts incorrect. And again, I'm seeing this instant feedback. Moving on to the next question. This is a mix and match type question. So I'm being asked to match the volcano types to the description, active, extinct, or dormant. So a volcano that has not erupted for some time is dormant. One that erupts regularly should be active, but I'm going to select extinct. I'm just going to get this deliberately partially correct. I'm going to click check answer. You can see the correct answers are highlighted, the incorrect ones are highlighted in red, and I'm given the answer down here again. Moving on, I'll skip this one, and I might as well pick the last one, which I believe is a fissure. And there I have it. So when I've gotten to this stage, as a student, I can navigate through a homework activity, not a test. I can navigate backwards and forwards. So I can actually click through and I can go back to a question that I may have skipped. I can say, okay, I want to try this one. What is part D? Okay, we'll go with a vent, I think is correct. And I'm given the correct answer. I'm going to leave question 7 here. I skipped this one. I'm going to leave this skipped. I'm going to go down to the very end again. I'm going to click submit. I'm asked to confirm, do I wish to submit the assignment? I could go back and I could have another look around. In this instance, I'm going to crack on and click continue. It'll take a moment, and I'm brought to this summary screen, which is quite helpful to the student in that it gives them the breakdown of which questions they got correct, which questions they got partially correct, which ones they got incorrect, and which ones that they skipped. There is this button waiting to be graded. This is on our platform, but it does not affect any of the current homework space products like history or geography. Each of the questions within homework space are automatically graded. There's no grading that you need to do, and that is obviously what Adam was confirming earlier on in terms of homework space saving time. So you do not need to grade anything. It's all automatically marked. I'm going to click on view answers as a student, and what this does Again, it's another source of reinforcement to the student. They can have a quick look to see exactly how they did. So they can review their entire submission and the marks that they've gotten. From there, I'm going to skip back over to my teacher account. And I'm going to jump back to my Folens Hive library or homepage. And the last two things I want to show you really involve how you can check to see how students have done and also how you can check their progress throughout the year, both in terms of a class overview and also on a per student basis. So on the left hand side, we have a Manage Assignments button. And if I click on that, this brings me to a screen. Now I have a couple of different filters up here. I'm going to leave these as they are. I'm not going to search for an activity title. They could be useful. You could search if you have been using Homework Space all year. It's now April or May, and you want to search back to earlier in the year to see how your students have done. I don't have too much on this page at the moment because I've only set it up recently at the start of the school year. And what this shows me is all of the assignments that I've set for my students so far this year. So it's a couple of different ones here. You can see the one that I just had my students, or that I just assigned to my students. As you can see, 1 out of the 3 students submitted it. Denise, whose account we were just on. And then you have ones that I've assigned to an entire class. So I'm going to have a quick look at this one that I assigned to my students a few days ago, which is this time I'm focusing on history. So if I open this up, this brings me to a page where of my 20 students in the class, I'm seeing which of those students submitted the assignment. They've actually completed the work. They've done their homework, a simpler way of putting it, and which ones have not done their homework. So I'm seeing the student name, the class group, the class that they're in, and I'm seeing the due date of the assignment as well. And a few different things I can do here. So straight away, if the due date is passed, or if you want to give the student more, what would you say, another chance to actually complete it, you could tick the box here. So I could tick the box next to these students, and I could click reassign now. I'm not going to do that at the moment, but likewise on the submitted tab, if a student has done particularly badly or maybe worse than some other students, you want to give them another chance at it. None of these marks aren't the worst, but you could have a student that has done particularly badly. You can select their, you can tick the box next to their name, and that'll allow you to click the reassign now button, which will resend the assignment to them to give them another chance to submit it. I'm going to leave that. Another thing to look at here is, I suppose, this review button next to the students' names. So I will select this student here. And what this allows me to do is dive in deep to see exactly how the student has completed this homework. So the answers that the marks that they've completed, you can see, are the marks that they've gotten. You can see the answers that they have entered. So the question obviously is which name was given to which Romans. The student chose citizens, whereas the correct answer should have been patricians, all the way down to the answers that they've gotten correct, which why were there so many slaves in ancient Rome? Slaves came from conquered territories. And again, we've got this one around this particular thing here, which of course is an aqueduct, and this is a forum, and all the way down to the very end. So you can dive into that detail at a granular level, should you wish. You also have options to send feedback to the student. I'm going to leave that for today, but that is something that you can type in something here and click the send button. Also on this page, the last thing I want to show you on this page before I move on is this compare student responses button. Now what this does at a very, very quick glance, it allows me to look at the entire group of students and see exactly how they've done on this particular activity that I set for homework across the different questions. So if I scroll down, I can see the students' names, I can see which questions they got correct, which questions they got incorrect, which questions they got partially correct. You can also see questions that the students may have skipped, signified by this dash or hyphen here, and I can see the students that haven't completed it yet. You can scroll all the way across to see the entire class. And you may wish, I'm not going to do this now, but you may wish to export that table into an Excel file. Closing that down, the last thing I'm going to show you is our report. So these are really our performance reports. are quite useful as the year progresses. Now, I have only used this with a handful. I've only answered a couple of questions on this test account, so I don't have much data in here, but just to give you a flavor, I suppose, of what these reports can look like, I'll select history, and I'll select history here again, my report type. I'm going to give this a second or two to load, just because we're on a webinar at the moment. It may take a second to load, so bear with me. What this does really is, at any point throughout the year, and it could be quite useful for like parent-teacher meetings, where you can check to see how your students have done across the entire course. So in this instance, there's not much going on because I haven't done too much work so far. But if you can imagine a more fuller picture, really, I suppose, where the students have been working on this throughout the year, and each unit looks a little bit more like this, which is the Roman Empire, the activity that I was just showing you earlier. And if I expand, sorry, this is actually the unit which is the Roman Empire. If I expand that out by clicking the expand button, and I'm going to give that a moment again, just because I am the signal is not great at the moment. And they say never do a live demo, but sure, that's exactly what we're doing. And here it's thankfully for my sake, it's loaded. And we have the list of students. And again, within this unit, we could see a more detailed breakdown, activity by activity. In this instance, I've only got one activity completed, but we could see exactly how the students have done. So as you can imagine, all of the averages across the unit are exactly the same because they've only completed one activity, but this could vary as they complete more homeworks as well as final tests. That is it for me. I'm actually going to hand you back over to Elizabeth now. Thanks.
That's great, Frank. Thanks a million. That was really comprehensive. Now, just before we go on to our Q&A session, I'm going to just give you a quick breakdown of the pricing and a little bit more information as well. So just on the pricing, we actually have 3 different pricing bundles for annual school subscriptions. So first up, we have the basic bundle, which works out as €8.50 per student per subject, and all prices include VAT. Then we have the multi-bundle, and with this bundle, you will get a discount if you choose 3 subjects per student. So that works out as €21 per student. And then with the premium bundle, it works out as $29.50 per student, but with that, the student gets all 8 subjects. So it works out as a discount of €21.50. But I'm delighted to let you know that exclusively for webinar attendees, we're offering a discount of 50%. So for the first 50 schools to sign up to Homework Space, we're offering a 50% discount. So for the basic bundle, if you did only go for 1 subject, works out as €4.25 per student per subject. And this offer ends on the 31st of October. So then, as well as that, if you want to get a closer look at Homework Space and the actual questions themselves, as Frank showed you a lot of what was in the platform and how it works. But if you actually want to look closer at the units and what they cover in detail and try out some of the questions yourself as if you were a student, we've set up a demo account for you. So all you have to do is go to Folan's Hive, and instead of using your usual login, use demo@folans.com and the password Folans. And then you can just play around with the different Homework Space subjects in there. So there's 8 of them in there, so choose whichever one you want. And as I say, we'll be sending out a recording of this webinar in case you want to capture those details. And also to let you know, Brian McGarvey is our Homework Space specialist. So if you want to get a more detailed demo or invite your colleagues along as well, Brian will be available for you for appointments and calls. And also you can chat to Brian about the webinar price, or if you can't get Brian, you can also speak to your local Folan's rep as well, and they can give you some information. So I'll just stop sharing my screen and ask the panelists to join me for our questions and answers. So Brilliant. I have a couple of questions here from teachers who've sent them in, but if you want to pop a question into the chat box, we'll try and go through it. So the first question is for Frank. What device can students use with Homework Space?
So Homework Space works via an internet browser. So going to Hive.ie, whether you're a teacher or a student. So students can access it via basically like a laptop. So a Windows laptop or a Mac device or computer, or also iPads or Android tablets are also suitable on the internet browser again.
Great. Then for Adam, do you need to be using a Folens book to use Homework Space?
No, not at all. For both history, for any of the subjects actually, they approach the complete junior cycle curriculum for a particular subject and cover off all the learning outcomes. And I suppose the phrase that we coined when we were creating is that they're textbook agnostic. We would obviously rather you were using Folens textbooks, but you don't have to be to enjoy the benefits of the product.
Great. I think this is a similar question, but I suppose Adam as well. Will Homework Space support the textbooks for STAIR or Oscuelga? No, for STAIR and Tír Ola. So I think that's time bound in real world geography.
We haven't developed them in Irish. To be fair, the Irish versions of each textbook are created by a third party, and we haven't investigated whether they'd be willing to support the product for an Irish version. If, of course, we do get the go ahead to do that, we'd let you know as soon as we can. But for the moment, we don't have any plans.
Great. And then for Frank, how do students log on to Homework Space?
Yeah, so that's via an internet browser. So Hive.ie, as I logged in on the demo there, if the student has a student account, which they will, and we would help you through that process, then they're brought straight into the screen that you saw. So it's just Hive.ie.
Great. And then there's just a question on price. So again, if you do want more detailed answers around pricing, chat to Brian McGarvey or your local Folens rep. There's a question here. Yeah, so they're all annual subscription prices. So they're per year. So each year you would have to pay, if it's the basic bundle, €8.50 per student per subject. For each of the 3 years of junior cycle, but there are special offers available, and as we said, so if you want to chat to Brian about those. And then I think we're nearly at the end. Oh yeah, another question for Adam. Are there any plans, I think you might have answered this during it, but are there any plans for senior cycle, Adam?
We'd love to do something for senior cycle, but at the moment we haven't cracked the nut as to how we go about it, because it would have to be very closely aligned with how assessment is done for each subject, or it would be preferable to have it closely aligned with how assessment is done for each subject. And so, as I said in my presentation, if people were to go in and take a look at the demo of Homework Space as it is now, if they had any suggestions for how it might be developed for a more senior product, I'd be delighted to hear them.
Oh yeah, and then just this question was linked to the cost question, but Frank, it's for the students. Do they get an account from Folens? And when the students are signed up, does it last for 3 years? So as I say, the subscription lasts for 1 year. But if you can just talk a little bit around, you know, the account and how it's assigned to the teacher or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so what we've been doing so far is we've been receiving the basically each school that's using Homework Space has supplied the students' school email addresses. So the login details that they might use, so email addresses and passwords, the login details they may use for other services. They may use them already for Folens ebooks, and they may use them for other platforms. They may be their Microsoft Teams or Google Classroom details. So we would always advise that if the school is happy with it, or if that's what suits the school, to use those login details, the same email address and password generally seems to be easier in terms of getting students logged in to anything.
Great. I think that wraps up all our questions. So I'd like to thank you all once again for giving up your time this evening to join us. We'll send you out a recording, as we said, in the next couple of days. There's lots of information on folens.ie as well, including videos and demos and information on the units per subject as well, if you want to check that out. And then I'd like to thank Frank and Adam for your presentations, and in the background to Aoife and Bridget for helping with all the technical support. So thanks a million. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thank you.